It's finally finished! I'm so excited. This has been like the end goal for me personally for the last like, I don't know, like 4 months, and I've finally finished my personal build. I haven't had my own PC for quite a while, so I can't wait. It's right here. Look at it. It's right there. So excited. And I think let's kind of get rid of all of this me talking nonsense and have a look at some sexy B-roll. I don't mean to blow my own horn, but it's turned out way sexier than I thought it was going to. I added some case lighting, like a strip of white in there, so it doesn't look as purple when it's turned on as it did in that B-roll. So yeah, let's have a look at the machine when it's powered on and with all of the lighting beauty. And with all of that majestic B-roll, I think let's stop just looking at its sexiness for a little bit, because I mean, I am very happy with the way it turned out, and it looks better than I thought it was going to. But let's look at the more important bit, which is the performance. How well does the custom liquid cooling loop that I have in the machine now perform compared to the previous air-cooled form that I had it in before? Now, before, I had a Cooler Master Hyper 212X cooling the CPU, and just the kind of huge air cooler that comes with the Jetstream palette card. Now, for the CPU, I got a 4 GHz overclock stable on an AMD 1700X, which is actually a very good overclock considering the CPU cooler that I had on, because other people haven't been as lucky. Hardware Canucks actually did a video where Dimitri tried to overclock his 1700X to 4 GHz, and he couldn't get it there, even with a huge kind of be quiet dark rock CPU cooler thing on it. It just wouldn't get there. So as far as Silicon Lottery goes, I think I'm quite lucky with my CPU. And with the Cooler Master Hyper 212X on it, it would sit at around 73 degrees Celsius in IDA 64. Now, with the custom loop installed, the CPU is sitting at around 54 degrees Celsius, which is a 20-degree difference, which honestly isn't as much as I thought it was going to be. And that difference nets me pretty much no extra overclocking headroom, because the CPU isn't bound thermally. It's just the architecture can't handle more of an overclock. So yeah, CPU-wise, no performance difference, just a little bit cooler. And not as cool as I thought it would be. I've actually been asking around on forums, and it seems as though there might be something wrong with my pump, because the D5 that I have in this machine is supposed to be able to go all the way up to 4,800 RPM when it's kind of balls to the wall being pushed. And, well, mine doesn't. At 50%, it reaches 2,800 RPM, and then if I push it from 50% to 100%, it doesn't make any difference. So it means that my pump is barely doing anything. And I'll give you a little bit of a look there. You can see the water is just kind of dribbling through. Yes, and that's a bit of a concern. But that brings me to the GPU. Now, it had a massive air cooler on it already, so it's not like I was taking a Founders Edition and then liquid cooling it. But that graphics card was sitting at around 65 degrees Celsius when I was running Furmark on it with a 2150 megahertz overclock on it, which was about the maximum I could get out of the GPU stable on air cooling. With it liquid cooled, it's dropped down to about 43 degrees at load, and the overclock I could get out of it was a 2114, so about 2114 megahertz, which is better than before, but not a huge amount. I mean, you're putting all that liquid cooling in there, and you're getting like 50 extra megahertz, which gives you a couple frames per second extra. That's not a big deal. I mean, it's running way cooler, and potentially if the pump is at fault here and I replace it and it performs better, then yes, maybe I can get an even bigger overclock out of it, but that's still not huge. I mean, if I look at the value proposition of this liquid cooling, it's pretty much non-existent, to be honest. Because yes, they're running cooler, but I was getting a tiny performance difference. And for the money that I spent on the liquid cooling gear that I have in there, I could easily have bought a 1080 Ti as opposed to a 1080. I probably would have been able to put an X299 Intel CPU in there, and that would have overclocked better. But I think that brings me to an interesting point around the value of liquid cooling. If you're at a point where you're buying a 1700X and a 1080, don't liquid cool it, because you're going to see pretty much no performance difference. But if you have something like a 7960XE in your PC, and two 1080 Ti's, or even one 1080 Ti, then there's more of a value proposition to liquid cooling. Because A, you can't spend any more money on hardware, kind of just speed-wise, and two, if you're using a monoblock on a 7960XE, you're going to be getting way better temperatures and way more overclocking headroom. Because the thing is, that CPU throws out heat like a sun, and the same for the MOSFETs. So if you have that properly cooled, it will give you more performance. But for this setup that I have here, the difference is pretty much purely aesthetic, and the fact that it runs a bit cooler and a bit quieter. Now, I'm going to see if I can fix the issue with the pump, and then I'll kind of I'll let you know how much of a performance difference that makes temperature-wise, because at this point it seems as though the pump is an issue. And with the two radiators that I've used, the Nemesis GTS 240mm radiators, they're extremely resistive, which means you need a lot of water pump pressure to push the liquid through quickly. And that's why you see that little dribble, I think, coming through. I think the lube is a bit crippled by the pump. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. Do like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it, and dislike it if you think that you hate the idea of liquid cooling, because to be fair, I'm not sold on its value proposition at all, but it sure does look amazing.